The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the city into a blur of lights and reflections. Ethan Ward watched it through the tinted windows of his penthouse office, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming against the glass. People called him cold, distant, untouchable. They said he didn't feel much, didn't notice much, just numbers, deals, profits. They were wrong. He noticed everything, especially when it came to her. Maya Collins, his quiet employee with steady eyes and a soft voice who never complained, never asked for anything, never missed a deadline. She arrived early, left late, and carried herself with a dignity that didn't fit her worn backpack and fraying coat. Ethan had thousands of employees across his companies, but Maya was different. He just didn't know why. But he was about to find out. It began with a file, an error too small for most CEOs to see, but Ethan saw it. A missing signature on a financial report. A section left blank that Maya had always filled. She was meticulous, almost painfully so. The next day she made another small mistake, then another. And when she thought no one was watching, she pressed her fingers to her eyes like someone trying to hold herself together. Something was wrong. He could have requested HR to look into it. He could have called her into his office and asked outright. But something in him, something he didn't recognize, made him do something he never imagined he would do. He decided to follow her. Not as a boss. Not as a millionaire hunting for answers. But as a man who needed to understand a truth he felt slipping just out of reach. The first night he trailed her, it was almost embarrassing how easy it was. Maya never looked behind her, never suspected anything. She walked fast, her coat pulled tight around her as she disappeared into the crowds. But she didn't go home. Not at first. She went to a small grocery store, picked up expired items from the clearance shelf, bread, a bruised apple, milk close to turning. She counted coins before paying. Coins. Then she walked 10 blocks, took 2 buses, and finally headed toward a neighborhood Ethan had never stepped foot in. Not because he didn't care about places like that, but because no one he knew lived there. She entered a cramped apartment building with peeling paint and flickering lights. Ethan stayed across the street, watching her climb the narrow staircase. When she pushed open her door, a small figure ran toward her and hugged her waist. A child. A little girl with hair in messy pigtails, and eyes too sad for her age. "Mama, you're home." Maya bent down, whispering something Ethan couldn't hear, smoothing the girl's hair, kissing her forehead. He stood frozen. Maya had a child. She had never mentioned it, not to anyone. Not even in her employee file. There was no dependent listed, no emergency contact except a disconnected number. Before he realized he was moving, he took a step closer, trying to hear what they were saying. That's when the neighbor's door swung open. A woman with sharp eyes leaned in the hallway. "Rent's due tomorrow. Your landlord already said he won't wait this time." Maya's shoulders stiffened. I'll figure something out." "You always say that," the woman muttered before closing her door. The hallway fell silent. Inside the apartment, Maya whispered again, her voice trembling as she held her little girl. Ethan couldn't see her face clearly, but he felt something in him twist painfully. This wasn't just struggle. This was survival. He stayed only a few minutes longer before forcing himself to leave. He had no right to stand there, no right to watch a private life she had clearly been trying to protect. But as he drove away, headlights cutting through the rain, one question burned inside him. Why was a brilliant, hard-working woman like Maya living like this? And why had she hidden everything so carefully? The next day at the office, she came in wearing the same coat as before, but her smile was different, forced, tight, brittle. "Mr. Ward, here are the reports you requested." She placed them gently on his desk. "Thank you," he replied, studying her face. There were faint shadows under her eyes, and her fingers shook slightly before she hid them behind her. He waited for her to leave. But she didn't. Instead, she finally lifted her eyes to his, and in that moment, Ethan saw the truth she was trying to hide. Fear. "Mr. Ward," she whispered, I might need the afternoon off. Just today, something came up." She never asked for time off, not once. "What's wrong?" he asked before he could stop himself. Her lips parted, but she quickly shook her head. "Nothing, it's personal, sir." His chest tightened. She was going to lie to him, again. But he didn't press, didn't reveal that he already knew something was very, very wrong. He nodded. "You can go." She turned to leave, relief flooding her posture, but before she reached the door, he called out softly, "Maya." She paused. "Take the whole day if you need it." She froze for a second, then gave a small, grateful nod before slipping out of the office. Ethan waited exactly 30 minutes before following her again. He told himself it was irresponsible, unprofessional, unnecessary. But the truth was simpler. He couldn't stop himself. Maya didn't go home this time. She rushed across town to a hospital, one of the busy public ones where the hallways were too full and the nurses too overworked. She moved through the crowd with familiarity, as if she'd been there many times before. Ethan watched from a distance as she went straight to the pediatric wing. Her little girl was sitting on a bed, hugging a stuffed rabbit, an IV in her arm. Ethan's breath caught. The child was sick, painfully thin. Her small chest rose and fell too fast, too shallow. Maya rushed to her, kissing her forehead, whispering soothing words Ethan wished he couldn't hear. "Mommy's here, I'm here now." A doctor approached, speaking quietly, too quietly, but Ethan saw the look on Maya's face. Fear, desperation, hopelessness. Then the doctor handed her a paper. A bill. A big one. Maya stared at it for a long time, her hands trembling so badly she had to grip the edge of the bed for balance. Ethan felt something inside him break. Not crack. Break. He understood everything now. The mistakes at work. The long hours. The hidden tears. Her empty fridge. Her frantic coins at the store. Her desperate request for time off. She wasn't careless. She wasn't distracted. She was drowning. And she was drowning alone. He leaned against the wall, gripping the cold metal railing, trying to steady himself. He had followed her for answers. He had found more than he ever expected. Maya wasn't just struggling. She was fighting for her daughter's life. And he was the only one who knew. The only one who could help. But the question tore at him. Would she even let him? Ethan didn't remember walking out of the hospital. He only realized he was outside when the cold air hit him like a slap. The city noise blurred into something distant and meaningless. All he could see was the fear on Maya's face, the way she held her little girl like the world was crumbling beneath her feet. He sat in his car for nearly an hour, hands on the steering wheel, breathing hard. He had seen poverty before. He had seen people struggle, but he had never seen her struggle. Not Maya. Not the woman who worked harder than anyone he had ever hired. The woman who never complained, never asked, never faltered, until life pushed her so far she could barely stand. He couldn't pretend anymore. He couldn't ignore it. And he couldn't unsee the truth. Her daughter was sick. And Maya was breaking. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office early, long before sunrise. His assistants exchanged confused looks. Ethan Ward never came in early unless something catastrophic was happening. Something was. He pulled up Maya's employee records. What he found only made the knot in his chest tighten. She hadn't taken a single sick day in 2 years. No vacation days. No medical claims. Half her paychecks had been withdrawn as cashier's checks, likely for rent. The rest went to a pharmacy and a local clinic. She wasn't living. She was surviving. Barely. When Maya finally walked into the building an hour later, she looked even worse than she had the day before. She smiled at the security guard. She greeted the receptionist. She kept her chin lifted. Pretending. Hiding. Ethan couldn't stand it. He intercepted her before she reached her desk. "Maya," he said softly. Her shoulders stiffened. Slowly she turned. "Good morning, sir." "Can I speak with you?" he asked, but his tone held no authority. It held something she wasn't used to hearing from him. Concern. Her eyes flickered with confusion, then nervousness. I have a few tasks to finish, but yes, of course." He led her to a small meeting room, private, quiet, away from eyes. She sat across from him, gripping her hands tightly in her lap. Ethan watched her for a long moment, trying to steady himself. "Maya, is everything all right?" She swallowed. "Everything's fine, sir." He closed his eyes for half a second. "Please don't lie to me." Her breath hitched. Her gaze dropped to the table. For a moment she said nothing. Then her voice cracked like thin glass. "I can't lose my job." Ethan felt those words like a punch to his ribs. "I'm not firing you," he said immediately. She blinked rapidly, her shoulders trembling with quiet relief, but she still didn't speak. Ethan chose his next words carefully. "I'm asking as a human being, not a CEO. Are you okay?" Silence lingered, heavy, fragile, before she finally whispered. "My daughter, she's sick, and I can't afford anything. The treatments, the tests, the medicines, even rent is." She shook her head, tears welling despite her effort to hide them. "I'm doing my best, I swear I am. I just need more time, more work, more hours. I can't lose this job, sir. I can't." Her voice broke. "They said if I don't pay half the bill by Friday, they won't continue treatment." Friday was 3 days away. Ethan leaned forward, every instinct in him screaming to protect her, but he kept his voice calm, gentle. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "People like me don't get help, Mr. Ward. We get replaced." His heart clenched so tightly, he had to look away for a moment. "People like me." He had heard that phrase his whole life, from those who thought he was unreachable, too wealthy to understand real problems. But hearing it from her hurt more than anything he had ever experienced. "Maya," he said quietly, "you should have told me." "I didn't want pity," she whispered. "I'm not offering pity," his voice deepened. "I'm offering help." Her entire body went still. "Help," she echoed softly, like the word itself was dangerous. "Yes." She shook her head immediately. "No, no, sir, I can't accept that. It wouldn't be fair." "To who?" he asked gently. "To anyone. People already talk. They'll think I'm using you, or worse." "Let them think whatever they want," Ethan said. "Your daughter's life matters more than rumors." Maya stared at him, her lips trembling. "Why are you doing this for me?" she whispered. "Because I followed you, because I saw the truth, because you deserve more, because no one should fight alone, because I care more than I should." But he couldn't say any of that. Instead, he said, "Because you're one of the best employees I've ever had, and because I don't ignore people who are hurting." Her eyes glistened. "Mr. Ward, I can't take your money." "I'm not giving you money." She froze. He slid a document across the table. It was an internal company form, one only top executives used. "Starting today," Ethan said quietly, "you're being promoted to executive assistant in the corporate division, with a full salary increase, medical coverage, and a housing allowance." Maya's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers hovered over the paper but didn't touch it. "I didn't earn this," she whispered. "You did," he said firmly, "every day." Tears finally escaped down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with one hand, trying to swallow the sob building in her chest. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Ethan murmured. "Just let me help." For a moment she looked at him with a softness he had never seen before. Trust, gratitude, something fragile and beautiful. But then her phone rang. She looked down, her face drained of all color. "It's the hospital," she whispered. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Go, I'll drive." She didn't protest, didn't pretend she could handle it alone. She simply nodded. And when she followed him out of the office, he walked beside her, not as her boss, but as the only person who refused to let her face her nightmares alone. The drive to the hospital felt endless, even though Ethan sped through every green light. Maya sat rigidly in the passenger seat, clutching her phone to her chest, silently begging for good news that wasn't coming. When they reached the pediatric ward, a nurse met them immediately. "Maya, your daughter. She collapsed during her breathing treatment." Maya's hand shot to her mouth. Ethan stepped closer instinctively, steadying her shoulders. The nurse continued, voice gentle but grave. "We need to move her to ICU, but before we do, the hospital still requires partial payment to approve." "I'll handle it," Ethan said sharply. The nurse blinked. "Sir." "I'll cover everything," he said. "Right now, just take care of the child." The nurse didn't argue. They rushed toward the ICU doors. Maya turned to him with shaking hands. "Mr. Ward, you don't owe us this." "You shouldn't." "I know," he said softly. Then he looked at her with a truth he could no longer hide. "But I can't watch you break, and I won't watch your daughter suffer." Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears streamed silently down her face. And Ethan realized something then. He hadn't followed her out of curiosity. He had followed her because his heart had already chosen her. Long before he understood why. When the ICU doors swung open and doctors surrounded her little girl, Maya collapsed into the chair beside Ethan, sobbing uncontrollably. He didn't think. He simply wrapped his arms around her. And she didn't pull away. For the first time, she let someone hold her pain. But as she cried into his chest, Ethan felt a single, piercing truth settle deep inside him. Helping her wasn't enough. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to save her. He wanted to be the man she could lean on when her world crumbled. But he also knew the truth wasn't done with him yet. It was only beginning. Hours passed in the ICU waiting room, but time didn't move in minutes for Maya. It moved in heartbeats. Every time a monitor beeped behind the glass doors, every time a nurse rushed down the hallway, she flinched as if the world were ending. Ethan stayed beside her the entire time. He didn't leave to take phone calls. He didn't leave for meetings. He didn't leave even when his assistant texted him 3 times about a contract worth millions. None of it mattered. Not compared to the woman sitting beside him with trembling hands, fighting to breathe between waves of fear. When the doctor finally appeared, Maya jumped to her feet so quickly that her knees nearly buckled. "Is she okay?" she whispered, her voice barely sound. The doctor nodded gently. "She's stable for now. Her oxygen levels have improved, but she needs long-term treatment, and soon." Relief swept through Maya so powerfully that her legs gave out. Ethan caught her before she fell, guiding her into the chair again. The doctor continued, "We'll move her out of ICU in a few hours. She's asking for you." A soft, broken smile formed on Maya's face. "Can I see her?" "Of course." But before she stood, the doctor looked at Ethan with recognition. "Mr. Ward, your card went through. You covered the entire balance." Maya froze. The doctor walked away. The words hung in the air like a confession. Maya turned to him slowly, eyes shining with confusion, gratitude, and something deeper, something raw. You paid everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Everything. I told you I would. Why? Her voice shattered. Why would you do that for me? He didn't breathe for a moment. He didn't think. In the beginning, I told myself it was because you're a good employee, he said quietly. But that wasn't the truth. Her lips parted. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I followed you because I was worried. And when I found out, when I saw your life, your strength, your daughter, something inside me changed. You changed it. Maya's eyes filled again. I shouldn't have followed you, he admitted. But I don't regret what I learned. You carry everything alone, and you shouldn't have to. A tear slipped down her cheek. You don't owe me anything, he said softly. Not gratitude, not explanations, not closeness. I just want you and your daughter to be okay. Silence stretched between them, thick, emotional, trembling. Then, Maya stepped forward and hugged him. Not the hesitant, fragile kind of hug one gives out of politeness, but the kind that came from someone whose heart was finally allowed to rest. Ethan's arms wrapped around her slowly, carefully, as if she were something he didn't know he was allowed to hold. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder, for not letting me drown. He closed his eyes. You were never meant to drown. When Maya walked into her daughter's room, the little girl reached out weakly. Mommy, I knew you'd come. I'm here, Maya whispered, stroking her hair. I'm right here, baby. Her daughter spotted Ethan in the doorway and blinked. Is that the man from Mommy's work? Maya flushed, embarrassed. Yes, sweetheart, he's here to help. The little girl managed a small smile. Thank you, mister. Ethan softened. You're very welcome. The child giggled softly. Mommy talks about you sometimes. Maya choked. I don't. The child interrupted, voice dreamy from medication. She says you're kinda scary, but nice. Ethan stifled a smile. Maya covered her face in mortified silence. But the little girl wasn't done. And she says your eyes are sad sometimes, even when you look angry. Ethan froze. Maya went red. I didn't, she listens to everything. He raised a hand gently. It's all right. But inside him, something shifted. This child saw him. This woman moved him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in the world he lived in. Over the next few days, Ethan handled everything. Hospital paperwork, insurance processing, even a better specialist. Maya tried to protest, but the hospital staff had already learned who he was and listened to him more than her. He didn't use his power to control her. He used it to lift her. On the fourth day, Maya's daughter was finally stable enough to be discharged. Ethan drove them home, insisting gently. The apartment building looked even worse than it had the first night he followed her. The walls were cracked, the stairs wobbled, the hallway smelled like dampness and old paint. Maya felt embarrassed as he helped carry her daughter's bag up the stairs. I know it's not much, she murmured, looking at the peeling walls, but it's all I could afford. It's temporary, Ethan said softly. She stopped. What do you mean? He hesitated, carefully choosing his next words. I arranged for a safer apartment closer to the office, he said, fully covered by the housing allowance from your promotion. You'll move in whenever you're ready. No rush, no pressure. Maya stared at him, as if he had just handed her a life she never thought she deserved. You thought of all that, she whispered. He nodded. Why? This time he didn't hide. Because I care about you, he said quietly, more than I should. Her lips trembled. Her breath caught. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to understand a truth her heart already knew. Then she whispered, I care about you too. Ethan's chest tightened painfully and beautifully. She stepped closer. He didn't move. Her fingers brushed his hand, hesitant but real. I thought no one saw me, she said softly. Not really, but you saw everything. You deserve to be seen, he replied. You followed me, she whispered, her eyes glistening, and you found the parts of me I tried to hide. He gently cupped her cheek. She didn't pull away. I didn't follow you to expose you, Maya, he said. I followed you because something in me was already yours, long before I knew it. A tear rolled down her face. Ethan wiped it away with his thumb. The hallway was quiet, fragile, glowing with something new, something neither of them expected. Maya leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her the way he had wanted to since the hospital. A soft, trembling whisper escaped her lips. You saved us. Ethan closed his eyes. No, he murmured, you saved me too. From that moment on, life didn't magically become perfect. But it became possible. Her daughter received treatment. Maya moved into a warm, safe apartment. And Ethan found himself ending work early, something he had never done in his life, just to sit with Maya and her child, eating simple dinners at a kitchen table that felt more like home than his penthouse ever had. One night, weeks later, Maya looked at him across the small living room as her daughter slept nearby. You know, she said softly, if you hadn't followed me that day, I don't know what would have happened. He reached for her hand. Then I'm glad I did. She laughed quietly. It was wrong. Yes, he nodded, but sometimes the wrong thing leads you to the right place. And what place is that? She whispered. He drew her gently into his arms. Here, he said, with you. Maya kissed him softly, tenderly, like a promise she was finally brave enough to make. And Ethan knew. The truth hadn't broken his heart. It had rebuilt it, piece by piece. With her. With them. With a future he never knew he needed.